Hey guys, Matthew here, and today I'll be bringing you guys the result of the 80% Delirious test. So before I get into the results and the methodology and all that, I do want to say though, this was by far the most annoying test. Having to buy 4 of these orbs for every single map is honestly very tedious, and it seems like there's a lot of people flipping these orbs, so buying them one at a time or so for the cheaper ones and then reselling them in bulk to people trying to get a lot of them at the same time. So if you're somebody who's looking to some very entry level flipping, trying to make a about 50 to 60 40 to 50% return of investment, honestly the bad Delirium Orbs is probably the place to be right now, because man, it is hard to get your hand on these, even just one at a time when it comes to the cheaper ones. So just a quick side note there, I'm really happy that my next test is going to be 100%, and we're going to be going into fractured maps, so we won't have to worry about buying so many of these bad orbs anymore. Now let's talk about methodology. As always, I was putting Beyond on every single map. It's very easy to make your money back there. It adds a bunch of juice, and it's really good for Headhunter, or if you're doing the budget version, or whatever build really for things like Inspired Learnings, it's really nice. Otherwise, since we are using the self-poison mechanic, as always, I was forcing on that mod every single map. I was using the simple sextant, but sometimes also primes. Realistically, they're pretty much the same price, so prime is actually probably a better deal. And this is the sextant that I've been talking about. Offers anywhere between 400 to 600% move speed, and anywhere between 800 to 1200% damage, which for most builds is 3 to 4 times more damage, which is absolutely insane for just the sextant. Now, of course, it does not come for free because you have to reroll that sextant, but that's something that we're going to fix starting next test with the does not consume sextant charges. Don't worry, I'll be explaining all of that tomorrow. Now let's talk about the fragments here. I was using a Rusted Harbinger alongside a Rusted Bridge Scarab. Rusted Harby does seem to be going up in price. They're at about 1.5C instead of 1C each, but still that is perfectly fine. The value is there for sure. And the Rusted Breach at 1 chaos each and even below 1 chaos each is absolutely insanely cheap for what it does. That being said, of course, it slows you down because breaches are pretty slow. Still though, you just need like 1 Sheila over the course of 10 maps, and you make some pretty significant profit. But every single map you're going to make profit just off of the Simulacrum Splinters, so I definitely recommend those for very low investment. Now again, when it comes to the Delirium Orbs, as I already mentioned, I was using all the cheap ones, so 10 chaos and below is what I was actually using. Anything above 10 chaos I wasn't using. So for example, last test I used a lot of Harbinger, and I thought it was really good in terms of profit. But Harbinger ones are definitely going up in price now. It's really hard to get them for anything below 12 and 15 chaos even, so I decided to just not buy them. I wanted to keep the test pretty consistent, so 10 chaos and below. But most of the orbs that I bought was actually 5 and 6 chaos, because it was the really bad ones like Prophecy and Essences and stuff like that. Now that we've gone through basically the methodology, let's talk about, oh yeah, right, we're obviously running just Burial Chambers as a natural T16. All right, now that we've done that, let's talk about the results, and you'll see that the net worth of our tab here by the end of the test was 3,949 chaos. Now, this is not obviously pure profit, but I went ahead and did the math because, of course, this does not count for map drops. So I had to do this manually, but these are the results in terms of currency per hour, or exalts per hour, sorry, based on with and without lucky drops. So let's go ahead and talk about that real quick. 6.9 exalts per hour, nearly 7x per hour with lucky drops. Now let's talk about what the lucky drops were, because there's definitely a few of them. We dropped the Doctor, so that's like 11 exalts right then and there. Obviously going to boost this currency per hour by a lot when we've only played for 6 hours. This is actually the first Doctor we've dropped in any of those tests. So 1 Doctor in 30 hours of mapping. Pretty bad RNG if you ask me. We dropped 3 raw exalts, so 1 per 2 hours of playing. Pretty unlucky there as well, I feel, for 80% Delirious, but either way. And then the last lucky drop that I considered here would be the We killed Cyrus and got a Thread of Hope, which was a perfect resistance medium, which we sold for, well, which I sold, sorry, for 150 chaos, or about 2x for that. And that has also been removed for the non-lucky. So if we don't consider any lucky drops whatsoever, so just the things that you would always get every single time, 4.45, so just under 4.5 exalt per hour. Now, 4.5 exalt per hour doesn't sound all that good for the amount of work that goes into buying all those different Delirium Orbs and all that, but I really don't think it's fair at this point, when we're looking at 80% of Delirious maps, to not consider any lucky drop. Now, if you're farming 80% Delirious and you're farming them pretty efficiently, pretty quick, these are about 10-ish minutes per map, you're going to get drops. You're going to get exalts. You're going to get a doctor once in a while. You're going to get those really juicy drops, those, you know, high level gems with good, like 21, 23 gems, etc., etc. You're going to get some stuff. So looking at this is kind of unfair to 80% Delirious, I would say, but looking at this might also be kind of unfair. So what I think you could expect if you were to do the exact same test I did is a middle ground between these two numbers would be probably your consistent money per hour. So anywhere between 7 and 4, or 4.5 and 7. So maybe 5.5-ish exalt per hour is probably what I would expect to make if I was farming 80% Delirious long term. But I would not do that, as like I said, it is very tedious to buy those Delirium Orbs, especially the cheap ones. So let's talk about my interpretation of these results and what differs between 60% from yesterday and 80% from today. So now the biggest thing that you'll see here is that in terms of Simulacrum, we actually farmed a total of 9 of them. If I look at my VOD from yesterday, we can see here, even if it's pretty small, that I actually farmed 6 of them. That means that we got 50% more Simulacrums in the same amount of time. Now, this is actually what I had predicted in yesterday's video, if I remember correctly, that we were going to start getting much more Simulacrums, and that's pretty much what happened here with 50% more. Now, unfortunately, the price of these seems to be dropping and dropping and dropping at 1.5 exalt in bulk here, so even 9 of them is actually a little bit unfortunate in terms of actual currency. But they sell quite well at 1.5x in bulk, so why not? The doctor obviously is going to account for a lot of that, you know, bonus profit, but that's about it. Otherwise, as always, I always make sure to remove all of the non-good drops, pretty much. Like, if I was to show you guys exactly every single one of these items, none of these are actually fluff currency. This is actually the net worth that we gained. Now, the result that I showed, the exalts per hour, of course, removed the amount of currency that we had to invest. Initially, I had 760 chaos in the tab, so that was removed, and then the price of the doctor and all that was all removed. So these were actual accurate currency per hour. So again, I would say 5.5 exalt per hour is probably what you can expect if you're doing some poison, sex, and abuse, because you're going to be really, really fast, even without a headhunter. That's not needed at all. So yeah, I mean, 5.5x per hour is a pretty respectable paycheck. I mean, even you could consider it a little bit low, but we are fairly early into the league, so mirrors are not super expensive yet, and none of the items are crazy expensive. Headhunter might be a little bit on the high side of things, but that's about it. But if you were to take these results, 5.5 exalt per hour, you'd have to farm for 2 full days of like 6 to 7 hours, 8 hours of playing to get yourself a headhunter. So if you're a little bit more on the casual side and you play 2 to 3 hours, that means you have to farm for about a week, and you've got yourself a headhunter, which is pretty decent. At least I would think that's pretty decent. So that's pretty much all I have for the video. Starting tomorrow, we are obviously going to be looking at much higher investment, but also much higher currency per hour. At least I'm hoping so. At the very least, it won't be as tedious to buy the orbs, as we are going to be fracturing the map. Now, this is something that I'll be explaining about how to prepare a map like the one I'll be running, and of course, you know, what the actual best orbs to use and all that stuff. Again, all that's going to be in tomorrow's video, but for today, that's going to be it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Before I go, I want to say a huge thank you to my supporters: Johnny, Michael, Kaluzzi, Zirachi, Luro, Gaikona, JW, players Scott, Justin, Alex, Ollie, Matt, Kevin, Hayden, Bitizen, and Axel, as well as, of course, anybody else who wishes to remain anonymous and anybody else who has supported me in the past. That'll be Matthew signing out. Until the next one. Peace.